Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about the conflict that avoidants have when they have decided that you're the one. And so, this is interesting because you would think that this conflict is unpleasant, by the way. It doesn't feel that great. It can happen very quickly, but it doesn't mean it's a good feeling. But it's interesting because it's when they decide that they want you. So, it's not something that you guys can necessarily control, but it's good information because you might react to something without realizing it's because they care about you. And so there are two feelings, okay? The feeling is that you give them peace, which you have done naturally, and that if you leave, they will lose that peace, okay? So these are the conflicting feelings. However, it's not the best feeling because what happens is sometimes avoidants, they're so afraid of this feeling, they actually sabotage the relationship because of how vulnerable it is, right? You hold the ability to hurt them a lot, and that's scary. And so if you are the peace that they feel and you leave, then that peace that you bring is no longer there. So sometimes they'd rather sabotage it before you leave them. However, it's not always the case. But most of the time, no matter what, most avoidants do feel like this, whether they're going to run away or not. This is something that most of them pretty much have to face in order to feel like you're the one. So I just wanted to jump in for this particular sub point. If you guys are struggling with some of these relationship dynamics and you're not really sure what to do, and you really feel like there's more things that you need to work on directly, I offer those services and I would love to meet you or you and your partner. I have both. I can see just you, I can see your partner, and we can work on those things together so that you don't have to live in this confusion and you can build the skills that you need so that the relationship is pretty much forever changed. And I think it's a good value. I think that I wouldn't offer something if I didn't think it was a good value, because the point of it really is that you just need it like once or twice. You're not going to continuously be doing these things. I want you to have the skills that you need so that forever your relationship is built with more romance, with more love, and you don't have to suffer anymore. And so I have that. You can book a call with me. You can email me. That is in the description box. It is also pinned in the comments. And what constitutes as peace? Your presence is one of them. Your ability to take accountability, that's another one. Low frequency of disagreements. It doesn't mean no disagreements. A lot of people think, okay, in order to be with an avoidant, you have to tiptoe every single second. Don't do that. It's not healthy, because if you tiptoe every second, you're not challenging them to heal, and no matter what, they're going to do something abnormal because they haven't healed their attachment issue. You have to challenge them a little bit. That doesn't mean make them uncomfortable all the time, but in order for someone to change, most of us, we have to be in situations we don't always like. And so you don't want to get rid of the disagreements completely. Just make it palatable, but still able to push them in a positive direction, and for yourself as well. Because likely disagreements, there is research on it, can benefit relationships, okay? That you being there for a long time is one of the most common ones. You guys, if you guys have been together for like 6-7 years, a lot of times you are their peace. Whether you want to admit that or not, that's just, you've been in their life for so long, they're just comfortable with that. Fearful avoidants are like this for the most part, but sometimes what happens with fearful avoidants, and I've made a video on this, is they may stay in a relationship that they actually are not happy with, but they just don't want to leave because they're afraid you're going to get mad at them, or they just are checking out emotionally and they're not really sure what to do. Or some fearful avoidants are so used to unpleasant feelings that they think that's normal. And so it can be dependent, but most of the time, especially a dismissive avoidant, if you're with them for a long time, you are the person that gives them peace. For dismissive avoidant, that's almost guaranteed, because dismissive avoidants don't really have that same trauma. They don't have that much anxiety about certain things like that, but fearful avoidants do. But it depends. Some fearful avoidants don't feel that way. But I feel like if I didn't tell you that, that would be like misinformation. And of course, I never want to give you misinformation, and I try not to. So what constitutes as the fear of loss? Because these are two emotions, right? Peace and fear of loss happening at the same time. It's not you leaving, even though that's part of it, right? But you don't want to get to that point where you leave. Obviously, that's going to make it really uncomfortable. But this can be constituting as a fear of loss without you leaving, or without even the relationship being threatened. When you express what you want in a logical way without ultimatums. Why does this have to do with loss? Because you're expressing something that you want because they don't have it yet. And avoidants, often they will jump to conclusions when it comes to criticism and think they're not enough. And so their mind is going, okay, if I don't do this, you're going to leave eventually. And maybe that's true. And so that is where the fear of loss comes from, even if you're not necessarily implying that, if that makes sense. The next one is you provide space when needed, but You are predominantly providing presence. This is really important. You provide space when needed, but you're predominantly providing presence. It's really important because a lot of people, you guys flip it. You predominantly provide space and then sometimes you provide presence. That's not healthy. You want to predominantly provide the presence, but when needed, you provide space. It depends on the nature of the relationship though. And so it's really hard to define what that would look like because every relationship is different. But I'm going to give you some examples, and if any of this fits, that's good. If not, that doesn't mean that there is no solution. It just means I didn't say it or I don't know, right? And that's really important. You got to remember, I don't know everything, and I want you guys to remember that. You guys know your situation better than I do. For example, let's say you guys have been together for 2 years and you guys see each other twice a week. And when you guys do hang out, it's usually you don't really argue that much. You guys have fun together. Maybe you watch TV. Maybe you do some side-by-side stuff. Maybe you talk to each other while you're taking a walk, things like that. So it's predominantly presentful, because also when you guys are not together, you guys text, maybe just a little bit every now and again, but you do provide that presence. However, you see each other twice a week because the other times actually you are still providing space. Now, a lot of people think that's quite a lot of space, and then some of you guys are like, I haven't seen my avoidant partner in like a month. It depends, right? The nature of your relationship. Another example could be that you guys see each other less often. This is more common with long distance, by the way. Even secure couples, sometimes it's just really hard to see your partner if you're long distance. Let's say you see each other once a month. That it makes sense especially if you're long distance, but sometimes avoidants are more, like some are more severe and they need that kind of space. If that's the case, you need to also have more communication outside of seeing each other physically. And that can mean video calls, that can mean phone calls, text message. And sometimes when you guys do hang out, you want to make sure that it's overly presentful, in the sense you don't want it just you guys watching TV together. You want it to be maybe you guys go on a trip together, maybe something a little bit more romantic, because you want that presence to be the more prominent aspect of your relationship. And sometimes that means more prominent behaviors, okay? And so if that is occurring in your relationship, the reason why that constitutes a fear of loss is because they will lose something that allows them to feel a balance of their needs while challenging them. The next one is you have your own source of happiness outside of the relationship. It doesn't mean that you're leaving them for your friends or whatever, right? It just means that they can realize that you're not always going to be there and that you have options if the relationship ends. That doesn't mean the relationship is going to end. The goal is that it doesn't. But it's important that they know that you have options to do so, because they also have options and they understand how that feels. And it also means that they can't just do whatever they want to do because you will leave them. And it helps them to heal, but also helps them to respect what you need in the relationship, okay? The next one is that you accept your partner's and your shortcomings without denial. This one is very important. And what does it even mean? Shortcomings can be anything, but I'm going to give an example that's pretty common. Avoidants, a lot of them are not affectionate. I used to struggle with this one as well. And so I'm not even making fun of people. This was one of my biggest issues. And actually in my relationship that I'm in, that was one of the first issues that we had, where he felt like I wasn't affectionate enough. Like literally that was one of our main issues for like the first year and a half. That was like one of the things I was working on, because I didn't even know where to start. It was really hard. But a lot of avoidants are like that. They're not as affectionate naturally. And that's a shortcoming, right? And by accepting that, even if you are expecting it to change, of course, but you are aware that it is an issue. So in your mind, and out loud, you can say, I know you're not very affectionate, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's actually because I understand you. But sometimes I wish you were a little bit more affectionate, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, whatever it is, right? And your own shortcomings as well. Hey, I know I'm a person who's, maybe you're really anxious. You can say, I know I'm a person who's anxious about certain things, and I'm trying not to put too much pressure on you. I know I need reassurance sometimes. I really appreciate that you give that to me when I need it. It helps them to feel like you are a person who benefits them in such a way that if they lost you, they would lose those things, because when you accept them, they don't get acceptance much. And the fact that you're able to provide that is one of the things that scares them the most about losing you, but they have to feel that way. You can't let them not feel the fear. They need to, in order to really make peace with love and relationships, because that's part of love and relationships. And the next one is when you acknowledge their efforts. and can be really difficult for an avoidant to feel like their own efforts matter. And so if you acknowledge it, it's hard. They don't want to lose that. So let's summarize and we'll wrap it up. What constitutes as peace? Presence, accountability, low frequency of disagreements, and just being with them long term. What constitutes as the fear of loss? Expressing what you need, providing space when needed, but predominantly providing presence, having your own source of happiness, accepting you and your partner's shortcomings, and acknowledging their efforts. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.